Hi, my name is Ennis. This is Never Stop Trucking. Today we are talking about different types of dispatchers. I have been getting some questions. How can a dispatcher start? Where can they work? And if they can work in a certain way. So let's cover all those options. In my opinion, there are three types of trucking dispatchers. One of them is an independent dispatcher that works for on their own, and they usually own their own small company, and they would dispatch trucks from home, look for carriers for owner operators from home, and maybe even have a small office, but they would usually work for themselves. And as far as I can see, most of you guys are wanting to start a business that way. There's also another type of dispatcher, and it's same, but in this case, you would work for someone else. There are a lot of independent dispatching companies that do dispatching on a larger scale. So they would have employees, they would have big offices, they would employ 5, 10, 20, 50 dispatchers, and they would work just as if they were working for a regular company, but they would have a boss, a manager, an owner, and then they would either be paid by percentage of that load, or maybe even on an hourly basis or on a salary. So a dispatcher can also start that way and even continue and be successful. And then there is a third type of dispatcher that most people don't even know about, but usually these kind of dispatchers have the biggest number represented in the United States, and these are dispatchers that work for a trucking authority. They work for a trucking company, and they would dispatch their own trucks, company trucks or owner operators that are leased on to that company. So they strictly work with trucks that run with the signs of their company on the side of the truck with their own authority and insurance. Judging by these videos and comments and questions that I'm getting, most people would immediately think when you say a name dispatcher about an independent dispatcher that works from home and then works with owner operators and just kind of finds loads for them. But in reality, the biggest number of truck dispatchers work for trucking authorities, dispatching only their own trucks. Now, let me tell a little bit about each type of these dispatchers and about biggest differences, advantages, and stuff like that. So if you have an independent dispatcher that's working from home, that means that that person has their own business, a small business, and they would do everything on their own. They would start the company from scratch, register it, get a bank account, EIN number from the IRS, and then they would start looking for owner operators and carriers and look for business themselves. And then once they find a carrier to dispatch, then they would have to actually go out and find loads. And now that's another challenge is to where to look for loads, which load boards will let you register as an independent dispatcher, where how to work with brokers, and you basically have to do everything. If you're doing it this way, you have to, be an accountant. You have to worry about your finances. You have to be a salesman, look for new business for new carriers, and then at the end you also get to be a dispatcher, where you look for loads and dispatch your trucks. So this is by far probably the hardest thing to do. But if you do it right, then I think it has the biggest potential for you to make the most money this way. Okay, now if you don't have a lot of experience, or if you're in a position where you cannot start a company like that, or you know have certain fears and you don't like risks, then you can always start working for a dispatching company that only does that, or a trucking company that needs a dispatcher, and then you can work that way. You can make money that way. I'm sure if you're good, that in a while you'll gain some experience and get a raise and get paid as much as you deserve. But if you're working for an independent dispatching company strictly as a dispatcher, then that's what probably you would do all day. You would just look for loads, because usually these companies have someone that only does sales, that would look for carriers or owner operators. They would look for new business. That would be their job if you're working for a bigger company like that. And then you have another department with just dispatchers. So that's all you do. Basically, you're all day by your computer and phone and just looking for loads for these carriers, and dispatch them and help them whenever they need help with those loads. So that's kind of a good way of doing business that way, because you don't have to deal with anything else. You don't have to deal with the stress of getting paid from, if you're doing on your own, getting paid and looking for new customers, new owner operators. You don't have to deal with finances. So basically you just do dispatching, and that's your job, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Now, the third option is where you work for a trucking company, and in my eyes, that's the complete. You get knowledge, you get experience. This way, the most experience. Okay, if you are working for a trucking company that has their own trucks or owner operators leased to them, because when you work with your own trucks, you can ask for better rates. You can you get form a relationship with drivers, because some drivers stay for a long time with that company, and you get to know them, you get to know the business better, and you're dealing with other sides of business, such as drivers breaking down on the road, if there's an accident, invoices, everything that is related to trucking. Okay, so the whole trucking industry, not just dispatching part. Now here you're doing with everything as far as the trucking business is concerned, and then you also get drivers to come into the office. You would meet them, you would talk to them, and you can physically see the trucks that you're dispatching, because they would come probably to your yard or to the parking lot or wherever they have a spot for them, and then you can physically go into the truck, look at the trailer, get to learn the equipment. And that's how I learned dispatching. I was a driver a long time before I was a dispatcher. That's how I learned about the equipment. But with dispatching, when I worked as a dispatcher for someone else, it was with a trucking company, and that's where I got my experience. And that's kind of how I started my trucking authority, because I had some experience. I noticed that it wasn't that hard. I mean, it was not easy, but I got enough experience with driving and with working firsthand with drivers and, managers and, the owner. And I would they would sometimes give me tasks that they would do. And then I would see that actually I could do it myself. And that's how I started. Then I decided to form my own trucking authority, and that's how I started. Only after a while, then I noticed that there is this potential with dispatching only side of the business, where you just work for owner operators or with owner operators that have their own authority, and then you would charge them a smaller percentage than as if they were leased on to you with on your insurance and all that. Because you carry a lot more risk that way if they're leased on to you. But if they have their own authority, you can charge them less, because you get paid all that money. Like even if you're in trucking business, usually trucking companies deal with factoring. So let's say that a trucking company charges 12% a fee to the owner operator that's leased on to them. but then they have a factoring company too, and the factoring company charges them anywhere from like 2 to 3%, sometimes less, sometimes more, but that's the average, 2 to 3%. So now you're not getting paid 12%, that the fee that you take from owner operators. You're actually getting paid 10%. Because you're dealing with factoring company, you have to take that into the account too when you do your calculations. And there's another thing, you have to pay for their permits, and then the brokers will pay you as a trucking authority. And then, like if an owner operator does a load for $2,000, you would factor that invoice, send it to the factoring company. Factoring company charges you 2%. They send you the remainder. They send you the 98%, and then but you give the owner operator 88% off of that gross. Okay, so you're making 10% that way. But let's say the broker does not pay, because the brokers usually pay within like a month or two, and then you have the advance from factory company. Let's say the broker does not pay the factoring company, or they go out of business, or something happens, or they short pay you. You still owe that money to the owner operator, because you're paying them. A trucking authority is paying these owner operators. And then if the broker does not pay, the factory company will just charge you back as a trucking authority. And then, you lost $2,000, so you carry that risk. Even with the insurance, when owner operators lease to the trucking authority, they use your insurance, and then whatever happens on the road, like the points of, for the SMS, and for FMCSA, the points on way station, when they pull them over, something is wrong with the truck, they get placed out of service, you get points on your record as a trucking authority. Your insurance goes up. You have 20 trucks driving for you, and then one driver does something bad, the insurance goes up for everyone, not just that one driver. So you always carry a risk. That's why you charge them more than as if you were an independent dispatcher who barely just looks for loads for them. Okay, and that way, if you're an independent dispatcher, that it's better for you in that sense, because you don't carry that many risks. And I hope this explains to you a difference between these three kinds of dispatchers. And then you always have to kind of decide for yourself, where are you going to start, what fits you the best, and where can you see yourself. And my suggestion to you is to start right away with something that you think is going to work for you. Okay, once you start with one of these, like if you go to a trucking company, it's going to be hard to become an independent dispatcher, down the road. But if you do an independent dispatching, you want to go with a trucking company, what I'm saying is, like, I got used to doing this, and that's what I do. I learned how to do it. So once you start to work in a transportation industry, just think about this. Is this something that you want to do for the rest of your life? Okay, because from what I've seen, most people, when they go into trucking industry, they usually stay there for a long time. Like if you start driving a truck, it's going to be hard to stop driving that truck, because we can talk about that in another video. But if you become a truck dispatcher, it's going to be hard to down the road switch to something else. So even once you enter this industry, just know that you're probably going to stay in it for a while due to various reasons, and not all of them are bad. I'm thinking mostly positively, but just saying that this is a different kind of work, a different kind of lifestyle. So you have to decide for yourself if this is something for you. Thanks for watching, and then come back for more. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you around.